They were dividing his money while his heart still beat. His children screamed over millions in the hallway, while I wiped the tears from his dying eyes. They hadn't visited in years, but the moment they heard inheritance, they circled like vultures. He squeezed my hand that night and whispered 6 words that would change everything. Call my lawyer. Change it all. This is the story of how a billionaire's maid inherited what his own blood thought they deserved. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to know, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. And if you love stories about loyalty, justice, and unexpected endings, please subscribe to our channel. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Elena, and for 8 years, I walked the marble halls of the Harrington estate, a 30-room mansion that echoed with silence more than laughter, with memories more than voices. Most people think being a maid for a billionaire means polishing silver and arranging flowers. They don't understand that sometimes you become the only family a dying man has left. I still remember my first day at the estate. I was 29, a single mother with a 6-year-old daughter named Sophia, and I needed this job more than I needed air. The employment agency had warned me, Mr. Harrington is particular. The last 3 maids didn't make it past a month. But when you're working 2 jobs just to keep your child fed, particular doesn't scare you. Poverty does. The mansion sat on 15 acres in the wealthiest part of Connecticut, hidden behind iron gates and ancient oak trees. When those gates opened for the first time, I thought I'd entered a different world. Maybe I had. The driveway alone was longer than the entire street where I rented my tiny apartment. Fountains, gardens, a main house that looked like it belonged in a European castle. This was where billionaires lived while people like me counted pennies for bus fare. Mr. Richard Harrington was 73 when I met him. Tall, even with his slight stoop. Silver hair combed perfectly back. Sharp blue eyes that seemed to see through every pretense. He didn't smile during my interview, just studied me like a balance sheet he was auditing. "You have a daughter," he said. Not asked, he'd clearly read my application thoroughly. "Yes, sir. Sophia. She's 6. "And her father?" I lifted my chin. "Gone, sir. It's just us." Something flickered in those blue eyes. Not pity. I would have hated pity. Something else. Recognition, maybe. "My children are gone too," he said quietly. "Different kind of gone, but gone nonetheless." I didn't understand what he meant then. I would. Eventually. He hired me on the spot with one condition. "I don't need someone to just clean, Miss Elena. I need someone who sees this house as more than a job. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir," I promised, and I meant it. Those first months, I learned the rhythm of the mansion. Mr. Harrington woke at 6 every morning, demanded his coffee at exactly 6:15, black, no sugar, hot enough to burn. Breakfast at 7 in the sunroom, always the same. 2 eggs, wheat toast, grapefruit. He read 3 newspapers cover to cover, making notes in the margins with a gold pen that cost more than my monthly rent. He worked in his study until noon. Phone calls, video conferences, meetings with men in expensive suits who barely glanced at me as I refreshed their water glasses. Dinner was simple, soup and half a sandwich. Afternoons he spent reading, history, philosophy, biographies of other wealthy men. Dinner at 7, alone at a table that could seat 20. Every single day, the same routine, the same solitude. "Does he ever have visitors?" I asked. Margaret, the cook who'd been with the family for 15 years, snorted. "You mean, does his family ever visit? Honey, you'll see them exactly twice a year, Christmas and his birthday. They stay 3 hours maximum, just long enough to make sure the old man knows they exist." "That's terrible," I whispered. "That's reality," Margaret said, her voice hard with years of witnessing it. "Rich people forget that money can't buy you someone to hold your hand when you're scared." But I noticed something in those early months. Mr. Harrington watched me. Not in a creepy way, in a curious way. When I hummed while arranging flowers, when I took a moment to straighten a picture frame that had gone crooked, when I carefully repaired a torn page in one of his antique books instead of just throwing it away. One evening, about 4 months into my employment, he called me into his study. "You fixed the Hemingway," he said, holding up the old copy of The Old Man and the Sea. My heart sank. "I'm sorry, sir. I should have asked first. I just thought—" "You thought it deserved to be preserved," he interrupted. "You were right. Do you read, Elena?" "When I can, sir. Usually at night, after Sophia sleeps." He was quiet for a long moment, then pulled a book from his shelf, a newer copy, the pages still crisp. "Take this. It's a better translation." "And, Elena?" "Yes, sir." "Stop calling me sir every sentence. Mr. Harrington will do." It was the smallest thing, but it felt like a door opening. Years passed like water. Sophia grew from 6 to 14. She got accepted into advanced placement classes, started dreaming about medical school. Mr. Harrington asked about her constantly, her grades, her interests, her future. He created a scholarship fund in my name, insisted it was just good business sense to invest in promising students. But I saw through it. He paid for Sophia's summer camp, her new laptop for school, her dental work when my insurance fell short. "Your family," he said once when I tried to refuse his generosity. "Don't families help each other?" His own children? I could count on both hands how many times I'd seen them in 8 years. There was Garrett, 45, the eldest, a hedge fund manager in Manhattan who called once a month, always during working hours, always sounding distracted. "Just checking in on the old man," he'd say to me, never asking to actually speak to his father. Victoria, 42, lived in Paris. She was a socialite, which apparently meant shopping and attending parties was her full-time job. She sent elaborate birthday cards with no personal message, just her signature and a return address to some chateau. And then Thomas, the youngest at 38. Thomas was the worst because he pretended to care. He'd show up unannounced twice a year, always with a new girlfriend, always needing to discuss some business matters with his father. Those discussions always ended with Thomas leaving with a check and Mr. Harrington sitting in his study for hours staring at nothing. "Do they know how lucky they are?" I asked Margaret once after watching Thomas speed away in his Ferrari, barely saying goodbye. "They know exactly how much money they stand to inherit. That's all they know." Mr. Harrington never spoke badly about his children, not once. But I saw the pain in his eyes every Christmas when they'd arrive together, a united front of forced smiles and expensive gifts they'd clearly had assistants purchase. They'd eat the elaborate dinner Margaret prepared, drink his vintage wine, and leave before dessert, citing early flights or important meetings. And then I'd find him standing at the window, watching their taillights disappear, looking more alone than any human being should ever look. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in October, crisp autumn air filtering through the open windows. I was arranging fresh flowers in the entrance hall when I heard Mr. Harrington's voice from the study, not his usual controlled tone, but something cracked and raw. "How long?" "6 months." "Are you certain?" Silence. Then, "No. Don't call them yet. I need time to think." When he emerged 20 minutes later, his face was gray, his hands trembling slightly. For the first time in 8 years, he looked every one of his 81 years old. "Elena," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "would you make me some tea? The chamomile, I think." "Of course, Mr. Harrington." As I turned to go, he spoke again. "And,
Elena, could you, would you mind sitting with me for a few minutes? I find I don't want to be alone right now. That's when I knew. Something terrible had been said on that phone call. Something that made a man who'd built a $400 million empire need the company of his maid more than anything else in the world. I made the tea, I sat with him, and for the first time in 8 years, I watched Richard Harrington cry.
The diagnosis was pancreatic cancer, stage 4, inoperable. 6 months if he was lucky, Dr. Morrison had said on that terrible phone call, maybe less. Mr. Harrington made me promise not to tell anyone. Not yet, Elena. I need to see something first. I need to know. He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. He needed to know if his children would come because they loved him, or only when they knew time was running out. For 3 weeks, he said nothing. He continued his routine: coffee at 6:15, newspapers, work, books. But I noticed the changes. How he'd pause sometimes, hand pressed to his side. How food became harder for him. How he'd stand at the window longer, staring at nothing, or maybe at everything he'd be leaving behind. "Call them," he finally said one morning. "Tell them I need to see them. Family meeting this weekend. Non-negotiable." I made the calls, my heart heavy. Garrett answered on the 4th ring, clearly annoyed. "This weekend? I have a conference in Singapore." "Your father says it's important." "It's always important with him." "Fine, I'll send—" "He wants you here, Mr. Garrett, in person." A heavy sigh. "Fine, Saturday, I can give him 2 hours." Victoria was in Milan. "Darling, I'm in the middle of Fashion Week. Can't this wait until Christmas?" "He specifically asked for this weekend, Miss Victoria." "God, he's so dramatic." "Fine, but I'm bringing Claude, my boyfriend. Father will just have to deal with it." Thomas was the only one who sounded remotely concerned. "Is that okay? Is something wrong?" For a moment, I almost liked him. Then he continued, "Because if he's changing investment strategies again, I need advance notice. My financial advisor says—" I stopped listening. They arrived Saturday afternoon like a storm rolling in. 3 luxury cars pulling up within minutes of each other, as if they'd coordinated their entrance. Maybe they had. Garrett came first, stepping out of a black Mercedes, phone pressed to his ear, barely glancing at the mansion he'd grown up in. He was tall like his father, but soft around the middle, too many business lunches, not enough actual work. His suit probably cost more than I made in 3 months. He breezed past me at the door. "Where is he?" "In the study, Mr. Garrett. He's expecting," but he was already gone, expensive shoes clicking on marble. Victoria arrived in a white Bentley driven by someone else, probably rented for the occasion. She emerged in oversized sunglasses and a dress that screamed Milan runway, followed by Claude, a man at least 15 years younger than her, looking bored and scrolling on his phone. "Elena," she air-kissed near my cheeks, her perfume overwhelming. "You look exactly the same. Still working here. That's so loyal of you." The way she said loyal made it sound like an insult. Thomas came last, in a cherry red Porsche that he parked at an angle, taking up 2 spaces. His girlfriend du jour was a blonde 20-something in heels too high for walking. She clung to his arm like an accessory. "The maid," Thomas grinned at me, that practiced charm oozing from every pore. "How's our favorite Elena? Still taking care of the old man?" "Your father is waiting in the study." "Of course he is. Probably wants to lecture us about responsibility again. You know how he gets." I wanted to scream at all of them. "Your father is dying. He has 6 months. 6 months, and you can't even pretend to care?" But I said nothing. It wasn't my place. Not yet. The family meeting lasted 20 minutes. I know because I was dusting in the hallway, something I didn't need to do, but Mr. Harrington had quietly asked me to stay close. I heard everything. "You brought me here for this?" Garrett's voice sharp with annoyance. "To tell us you're not feeling well? Dad, you're 81. Nobody feels well at 81. "I think what Father is trying to say," Victoria chimed in, "is that maybe it's time to think about stepping back, retiring properly, perhaps moving into one of those lovely assisted living communities, where people our age can manage your care and your assets. We've actually been discussing this, Dad. It makes sense to start transitioning things now, while you're still sharp enough to make decisions." "Transitioning," Mr. Harrington repeated, his voice flat. "You mean dividing?" "Well, practically speaking," Garrett began, "I'm not dead yet." Silence. Cold and terrible. "No one's saying that, Dad," Thomas recovered first, voice syrupy. "We're just thinking ahead, being responsible. Isn't that what you always taught us?" "What I taught you was integrity, compassion, looking after those who need help. When exactly did you learn any of those lessons?" "Here we go," Victoria muttered. "Another guilt trip." "I'm not guilting anyone. I'm simply observing that the three of you haven't visited me in 8 months. But now, when I mention not feeling well, you're suddenly very interested in transitioning my assets." "That's not fair," Garrett snapped. "We're busy. We have lives, businesses, responsibilities." "I had all of those things too. I still made time for my father when he was dying. I sat with him, held his hand, made sure he wasn't alone." "Well, you're not alone. You have Elena and Margaret and the whole staff." "Staff." The word came out like broken glass. "Yes, I have staff." They left within an hour. I watched from the upstairs window as they gathered by their cars, heads together, voices animated. Garrett was gesturing sharply. Victoria kept checking her phone. Thomas was laughing at something, his girlfriend hanging on his arm. They were planning something. I could feel it in my bones. When I came back downstairs, Mr. Harrington was still in his study, sitting in the dark, staring at his hands. "Mr. Harrington, can I get you anything?" "Do you know what the saddest thing is, Elena?" His voice was barely a whisper. "I built all of this for them. Every dollar, every investment, every sacrifice. I missed their school plays and birthday parties because I was building an empire to leave them. And now," he trailed off. "But I understood. Now they couldn't even pretend to care about him, only about what he'd leave behind." They were talking in the driveway. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard Garrett say something about accelerating the timeline, and Victoria mentioned her lawyer. Mr. Harrington nodded slowly, unsurprised. Of course they did. He looked up at me then, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not sadness, not anger, but clarity. Cold, hard clarity. "Elena, how is Sophia? Still dreaming of medical school?" The change of subject confused me. "Yes, sir. She got straight A's again this semester. She's talking about Johns Hopkins." "Good. That's good." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "And you, Elena, what are your dreams?" In all these years, I've never asked. "My dreams don't matter, Mr. Harrington. I'm just happy Sophia has a chance at hers." "Just happy," he repeated. "You know what, Elena? You're the only person in my life who's ever been just happy
with anything. No demands, no expectations, just kindness. He stood up slowly, wincing slightly at the pain. I'd like you to arrange something for me. Call my lawyer, Michael Brennan. Tell him I need to see him, tonight if possible, here at the house. Tonight, sir? Yes. His jaw set in that determined way I'd seen 1,000 times in business meetings. And Elena, this conversation stays between us. No one else needs to know. Not Margaret, not the gardener, and certainly not my children. Of course, Mr. Harrington. As I left to make the call, I heard him whisper to himself, "They want to accelerate the timeline? Fine. So will I." The war had begun, but the Vultures had no idea they'd already lost.
Michael Brennan arrived at 9 o'clock that night, carrying a leather briefcase that looked older than I was. He'd been Mr. Harrington's attorney for 30 years, a thin man with kind eyes and the careful demeanor of someone who'd seen every kind of family drama money could create. Mr. Harrington met him in the study. I brought them coffee and then retreated, but as I was leaving, Mr. Harrington called out, "Elena, please stay. I'll need you for this." I froze in the doorway. "Sir?" "Sit down," he said gently. "What we discussed tonight involves you." My heart hammered as I perched on the edge of a leather chair. Michael looked unsurprised, which somehow made me more nervous. "Richard's told me about your years of service," Michael said, offering a small smile, "and about today's visit from his children." Mr. Harrington's face darkened. "They've already started circling, Michael. They didn't even wait for me to die. They're planning how to divide everything while I'm sitting right in front of them. Unfortunately, that's not uncommon in estates of this size." "No, I suppose it isn't." Mr. Harrington leaned forward, fingers steepled. "Which is why I'm going to change my will. Significantly." The room went silent, except for the ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. "I need you to tell me the legalities. I want to ensure that what I'm about to do is unbreakable. No loopholes, no contests, nothing my children's expensive lawyers can dismantle." Michael pulled out a yellow legal pad. "I'm listening." What followed was an hour of legal discussion that made my head spin. Trusts, clauses, fiduciary responsibilities, videotaped testimonies, but the core of it was simple and shocking. Mr. Harrington wanted to leave the majority of his estate to charity and to me. "Mr. Harrington, I can't—" I started to stand, panic rising in my chest. "Please, Elena, let me finish." His voice was firm, but not unkind. "You're going to want to refuse. I understand that, but I'm asking you to listen first." I sat back down, hands trembling. "My children will receive a trust, $5 million each, enough to live comfortably for the rest of their lives if they're even remotely responsible. But the bulk of my estate, approximately $370 million, I'm splitting between several charities and a foundation that I want you to run." "Me?" The word came out as a squeak. "Mr. Harrington, I'm a maid. I don't know anything about running a foundation. You know about compassion, about sacrifice, about putting others before yourself." He leaned back, and for the first time in days, he looked at peace. "Elena, in 8 years, you've never asked me for anything. Not a raise, not a favor, nothing. You fixed my broken belongings because you thought they deserved care. You remembered how I take my coffee every single morning. You've been more of a family to me than my own blood." Tears burned in my eyes. "But your children—" "My children have made their choices clear. They want my money, not my love, not my time, not me." His voice cracked slightly. "You know what Garrett said to me once, about 5 years ago. He said, 'Dad, at a certain point, you're just keeping score with money you'll never spend.' He meant I should give it to them now, not because they needed it, but because they wanted it." Michael spoke up, his voice professional but gentle. "Elena, you should know, this kind of will change isn't unprecedented, but it will be contested. His children will fight this." Let them fight. That's why I want everything documented. Video testimony, medical evaluation proving I'm of sound mind, multiple witnesses. I want this airtight. It will be, Michael assured him. But Elena, you need to understand what you're walking into. The Harrington children will come after you with everything they have. Lawyers, investigators, potentially even media attention. They'll claim you manipulated their father, took advantage of an elderly man. I never... My voice broke. We know that, Mr. Harrington said firmly, which is why the video testimony is crucial. I'll explain exactly why I'm making this choice. My reasoning, my full mental capacity. They can try to paint you as a villain, Elena, but the truth will be there in my own words.
Over the next 2 weeks, everything was arranged. Michael brought a videographer, a doctor to certify Mr. Harrington's mental competency, and witnesses who weren't family or staff, neutral third parties, who could testify that Mr. Harrington was of sound mind and acting of his own free will. I watched Mr. Harrington record his testimony one afternoon. He sat in his study, the afternoon light streaming through the windows, and spoke directly to the camera, as if speaking to his children one last time. To Garrett, Victoria, and Thomas, he began, his voice steady. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone, and you're angry about my will. You're probably calling me senile or claiming Elena manipulated me. Let me be absolutely clear. I am of sound mind. I have been evaluated by 3 separate physicians, and this is my choice, made freely, with full understanding of what I'm doing. I gave each of you every advantage in life, the best schools, unlimited opportunities, seed money for your businesses. I gave you everything except what I couldn't, character. That you had to develop yourselves, and I'm sorry to say, you chose not to. In 8 years, Elena has shown me more genuine care than the 3 of you combined. She didn't do it for money. She did it because she's a good person. That's something money can't buy, and apparently can't teach. You'll each receive $5 million. If you're wise, it will last you the rest of your lives. If you're not, well, that's no longer my problem. The rest goes to causes I believe in and to someone who earned it through simple human decency. I hope someday you'll understand, but if you don't, that tells me everything I need to know. He paused, looking directly into the camera. I wasn't a perfect father. I worked too much, missed too much. But I tried to teach you that wealth comes with responsibility, that we help those who need help, that character matters more than comfort. Elena understood that lesson without being taught. I wish you had too. The night after the will was finalized and locked in Michael's office safe, Mr. Harrington called me to his study. It was late, nearly 11 o'clock. The house was dark except for the soft light from his desk lamp. "Sit with me, Elena," he said quietly. I sat in my usual chair across from him. "Are you frightened? About what's coming?" I thought about lying, about being brave. But he deserved the truth. "Terrified," I whispered. He nodded. "Good. That means you understand the magnitude. But, Elena, I need you to promise me something. Anything, Mr. Harrington. Don't let them bully you. Don't let them make you feel like you don't deserve this. You've earned every penny through 8 years of kindness when they couldn't manage 8 hours." He reached across the desk and took my hand, something he'd never done before. His skin was paper thin, cold despite the warm room. "I'm dying, Elena. We both know it. The pain is getting worse. I have maybe 3 months left if I'm lucky. And I need to know that when I'm gone, something good will come from all of this. That the money I spent my life accumulating will actually help people, not just fund more luxury cars and vacation homes." Tears streamed down my face. "I promise. I swear to you, Mr. Harrington, I'll make you proud." "You already have," he said softly. "You already have." We sat there in the quiet, my hand in his, both of us knowing that time was running out. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Somewhere in Manhattan, Paris, and wherever Thomas was living these days, his children went about their lives, completely unaware that their inheritance had just been given to someone who'd earned it the only way that mattered, through love. The war was coming, but in that moment, there was only peace.
Mr. Harrington deteriorated quickly after that night. By early December, he could barely leave his bed. The cancer was spreading faster than anyone had predicted. The doctors gave him weeks now, not months. I moved into one of the guest rooms so I could be close, help him through the nights when the pain became unbearable. His children called more frequently now, though never to speak to him directly, always to me. "How is he?" Garrett would ask, voice clipped and businesslike. "Weakening," I'd say. "Keep me updated." Click. Victoria sent flowers, expensive arrangements that I had to clear space for it every few days. The cards were always generic. "Thinking of you, Father." Never, "I love you." Never, "I wish I was there." Thomas actually visited once, in mid-December. He showed up unannounced, without the girlfriend this time, looking almost human in his concern. "How bad is it?" he asked me at the door. "Very bad, Mr. Thomas. He's on morphine now for the pain." Something flickered across his face. Genuine sadness, maybe, or the performance of it. "Can I see him?" I led him upstairs to Mr. Harrington's bedroom, where the old man lay propped against pillows, gaunt and gray, a shadow of who he'd been just months ago. "Dad," Thomas said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I'm here." Mr. Harrington's eyes opened slowly, struggled to focus. "Thomas." His voice was a whisper. "You came." "Of course I came. You're my father." They talked for maybe 20 minutes, Thomas doing most of the talking, reminiscing about childhood memories, vacations they'd taken, lessons his father had taught him. It was almost touching. Almost. Then, as he was leaving, Thomas stopped in the hallway outside the bedroom and turned to me. "Elena, I want you to know, whatever happens, you'll be taken care of. I'll make sure of it." He smiled that practiced smile. "You've been good to my father, better than he probably deserved." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. "Your father deserves everything, Mr. Thomas." "Of course, that's what I meant." But his eyes said something different. They swept over me, calculating. "Just, when the time comes, don't let Garrett and Victoria pressure you. They can be vultures. But me, I remember the little people." The little people? As if 8 years of devotion made me small? He left, and I went back into the bedroom to find Mr. Harrington crying silently. He was counting the medical equipment. He whispered, calculating how much longer. I saw it in his eyes. I held his hand and said nothing, because what could I say? We both knew the truth. The final change came on December 18th at 2 a.m. I was dozing in the chair beside Mr. Harrington's bed when I felt his hand squeeze mine, weakly but deliberately. I jerked awake. "Elena." His voice was barely audible. "Call Michael. Now. Tell him it has to be tonight. Mr. Harrington, it's 2 a.m. I don't have time to wake for morning." His eyes, though clouded with pain, were sharp with urgency. "They're coming." "Who's coming?" "All of them. Tomorrow. Garrett called earlier. You were asleep. He said they're coming to help manage things. They're going to try to get me to sign something, Elena. I know it. They think I'm too weak to resist." My blood ran cold. "What do you want me to do?" "Call Michael. Tell him to bring everything. The new will, the video testimony, everything. We sign it tonight. We finish this tonight." Michael Brennan arrived at 3:30 a.m., looking rumpled and worried, carrying his briefcase and 2 witnesses, a notary and his paralegal, both discreet professionals who'd clearly done this before. What followed was the strangest, most solemn hour of my life.
Mr. Harrington, propped in bed with every light blazing, signed document after document. His signature was shaky now, barely recognizable, but the notary verified his identity and mental state. He answered questions clearly, repeated his wishes, confirmed that he was acting of his own free will without coercion. "The foundation," he said, looking at me. "Tell them about the foundation." Michael nodded. "The Harrington Foundation for Educational Opportunity will be established with $200 million. Elena Rodriguez will serve as director, with a board of trustees to ensure proper management. The foundation's mission is to provide scholarships for underprivileged students pursuing medical careers." Sophia's dream. He was making it possible for hundreds of Sophias. "And the rest?" Mr. Harrington pressed. $70 million to various charities, cancer research, homeless shelters, food banks. $50 million to Elena directly to secure her future and her daughter's education. $5 million each to Garrett, Victoria, and Thomas Harrington, held in trust. "The house?" Mr. Harrington asked. "Will be sold. Proceeds to the foundation." Mr. Harrington nodded, satisfied. Then he looked at me, his eyes holding mine. "The letter. Did you include my letter?" Michael pulled out an envelope, sealed with wax, "to be read to Elena after your death, as you specified." "Good." Mr. Harrington sank back into his pillows, exhausted, but at peace. "Then it's done. Finally done." The witnesses left at 4:45 a.m. Michael stayed a few minutes longer, gripping my shoulder. "You're going to need a lawyer, Elena. When this comes out, you're going to need protection." "I don't want any of this," I whispered. "I never wanted—" "I know, but he wanted it for you. Honor that." He glanced at Mr. Harrington, who drifted into morphine-induced sleep. "He's a good man, better than his children deserved." After Michael left, I sat in the pre-dawn darkness, holding Mr. Harrington's hand, listening to his labored breathing. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall, covering the estate in white. In a few hours, his children would arrive, expecting to find a dying man they could manipulate. Instead, they'd find a man who'd already won his final battle. The Harrington children arrived at noon, all three of them together, unified front once again. I met them at the door. "He's sleeping. The morphine." "We'll wait," Garrett said, pushing past me. Victoria and Thomas followed, spreading through the house like they owned it, which I suppose they thought they did. They were still waiting in the drawing room, whispering among themselves, when Mr. Harrington opened his eyes one last time that evening. "Elena," he breathed. I was at his side instantly. "I'm here. Tell them I love them, even now, even after everything." A tear slid down his weathered cheek. "Tell them I hope they learn before it's too late." "I will, I promise." His hand squeezed mine one last time. "Thank you for being family when they wouldn't." His breathing slowed, stopped, and Richard Harrington, billionaire, father, and the loneliest man I'd ever known, slipped away at 6:47 p.m. with his maid holding his hand and his children downstairs arguing about which lawyer to use. I closed his eyes gently and whispered, "Rest now. I'll take care of everything, just like I promised." From downstairs, I heard Victoria's laugh at something Thomas said, light and carefree. They didn't even know their father was gone. But they would, very, very soon.
The funeral was held on a gray December morning, 4 days after Mr. Harrington's death. Over 300 people attended: business associates, former employees, charity representatives, politicians. The church was filled with people whose lives he'd touched through his philanthropy, people who'd received scholarships or grants or second chances because of his generosity. His children sat in the front row, dressed in designer black,
faces appropriately somber. They played their parts perfectly. The grieving son, the devastated daughter, the heartbroken youngest. Victoria even cried, though I noticed she checked her phone twice during the eulogy. I sat in the back with Margaret and the household staff, wearing a simple black dress I'd bought at a department store. Nobody looked at us. Nobody acknowledged that we'd been the ones with him at the end. After the burial, Michael Brennan approached me in the parking lot. "The will reading is scheduled for tomorrow, 10 a.m. at my office." His eyes were serious. "Are you ready?" I thought about Mr. Harrington's hand in mine, his final words, the promise I'd made. "No, but I'll be there anyway." "Good. And Elena, bring a lawyer if you can. You're going to need one." Michael's office was downtown, all dark wood and leather furniture, the kind of place where fortunes were made and lost with signatures. I arrived 15 minutes early, my palms sweating despite the winter cold. The Harrington children were already there, seated together on a leather sofa, a united front. They looked up when I entered, and the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. "What is she doing here?" Victoria asked, not to me but to Michael, as if I were a piece of furniture that had been misplaced. "Miss Rodriguez is named in the will," Michael said calmly. "She has every right to be present." Garrett's eyes narrowed. "Named in the will? What does that mean?" "It means," Michael said, settling behind his desk, "that your father made certain provisions for Elena in recognition of her 8 years of service." "A severance package," Thomas said, nodding as if he understood. "That's appropriate. Dad was always generous with staff." He even smiled at me, that condescending smile. "Good for you, Elena. You earned it." I said nothing. My heart was hammering so hard I thought they might hear it. Michael opened the file, pulled out the documents. "Before we begin, I want to make clear that Richard Harrington was evaluated by 3 separate physicians in the weeks before his death. All confirmed he was of sound mind and acting of his own free will. Additionally, he recorded video testimony explaining his decisions. If anyone wishes to contest this will, you should know it's ironclad." "Why would we contest it?" Garrett laughed. "We're his children. This is just a formality." Michael's expression didn't change. "Let's begin then." He cleared his throat and started reading. The legal language was dense, but the key points cut through like knives. "To my son, Garrett Harrington, I leave a trust fund of $5 million. Garrett's face went pale. $5 million? That's impossible. His estate is worth over $400 million. "To my daughter, Victoria Harrington, I leave a trust fund of $5 million. Victoria's mouth fell open. "This is a joke. This has to be a joke." "To my son, Thomas Harrington, I leave a trust fund of $5 million. Thomas shot to his feet. $5 million each? What the hell is this? Where's the rest? Where's the estate? He continued reading, his voice steady. "The remainder of my estate, totaling approximately $390 million, will be divided as follows. $200 million to establish the Harrington Foundation for Educational Opportunity, to be directed by Elena Sofia Rodriguez." The room exploded. "You bitch!" Victoria screamed at me, lunging forward. Garrett grabbed her, but his face was purple with rage. "She manipulated him," Thomas shouted. "She's a goddamn maid. She got her claws into an old dying man and—" "Enough!" Michael's voice cracked like a whip. "If you cannot control yourselves, I will have security remove you. Your father anticipated this reaction, which is why he recorded his testimony. Would you like to see it?" The 3 of them went silent, breathing hard, staring at Michael with identical expressions of betrayal and fury. Michael pulled out a laptop, turned it around, and pressed play. And there was Mr. Harrington, sitting in his study looking directly at the camera, at his children, with those sharp blue eyes that could see through every pretense. I'd seen this recording when he made it, but watching it now, with his children seeing their father's final message, was almost unbearable. He spoke for 10 minutes, every word measured, every sentence deliberate.
He explained his reasoning, his disappointment, his hope that they'd learn from this. He talked about character and compassion and what truly mattered in life. Elena showed me more genuine love in 8 years than you 3 showed me in 40, he said on the screen. She never asked for anything. She just gave. That's the difference between you and her. She understood what family really means. When the video ended, the silence was deafening. Victoria was crying, real tears this time, ugly and desperate. Garrett's hands were fists, knuckles white. Thomas stared at the blank screen like he'd seen a ghost. You can contest this, Michael said quietly. You can spend years in court, waste hundreds of thousands on lawyers, but you'll lose. I guarantee it. Or you can accept your father's decision, take your $5 million each, and move forward with your lives. $5 million? Garrett said, his voice hollow. $5 million for each of us. And she? He looked at me with such hatred, I actually flinched. She gets $50 million personally, plus control of $200 million more? Plus $70 million to various charities, plus the proceeds from selling the estate. We'll fight this, Victoria hissed. We'll destroy her. We'll prove she manipulated him, coerced him. Try it, Michael said coldly. Every moment with your father was documented. Every conversation, every interaction. You want to go to court? Fine. We'll show the jury how many times you visited him in 8 years. We'll show them the phone records. We'll let them see who really cared for Richard Harrington in his final days. Thomas's shoulders slumped. He knew they'd lost. They all knew. One by one, they left the office without looking at me. No goodbye, no acknowledgement. Just 3 people walking out of a room where their father had delivered his final judgment. And they'd been found wanting. I stood in the lobby of the new Harrington Foundation headquarters, watching Sophia and 40 other scholarship recipients gather for orientation. They were the first class, bright, eager kids from backgrounds just like ours, getting chances they'd never have had otherwise. Sophia was starting at Johns Hopkins in the fall, full scholarship, just like her Mr. Harrington had wanted. The foundation funded medical school scholarships, cancer research, homeless shelters, food banks, every dollar doing exactly what Mr. Harrington had hoped, making the world a little bit better, one person at a time. I never heard from Garrett, Victoria, or Thomas again. They'd taken their $5 million and disappeared into their separate lives. I heard through Michael that they'd tried to contest the will for about 3 months before their lawyers told them it was hopeless. Sometimes, late at night, I still thought about Mr. Harrington, his hand in mine, his final words, the loneliness in his eyes when he talked about his children. And I kept my promise. Every single day, I kept my promise. The inheritance they fought over while he was still breathing, it changed lives. Hundreds of them. It became scholarships and second chances and hope for people who had none. That's what true inheritance means. Not money in a bank account, not mansions or cars or luxury, but legacy, impact, love that continues even after you're gone. Mr. Harrington understood that. His children never did. And that made all the difference. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories about loyalty, justice, and the power of compassion. Drop a comment below and tell us, what would you have done in Elena's position? Do you think Mr. Harrington's decision was fair? Have you ever witnessed family greed like this? We read every single comment and love hearing your thoughts. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to hear a story about real kindness winning over selfishness. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next story. We post new inspiring tales every week about maids, underdogs, and everyday heroes who prove that character matters more than wealth. Remember, true family isn't about blood. It's about who stays when things get hard. Elena proved that. Mr. Harrington knew that, and now, hopefully, you do too. See you in the next story.